Okay, moving on to 6.3, question 1a. Between what consecutive whole numbers are the following square roots? So we can say that square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 4 is 2, right? So the square root of 3 is going to be in between square root of 1 and square root of 4. This will be square root of 3. So we can say that square root of 3 must be in between 1 and 2. So again, square root of 3 is in between the square root of 1 and the square root of 4. So the square root of 3 is in between 1 and 2. So that's the answer. Square root of 3 is in between 1 and 2. B. Square root of 5. So I can say that the square root of 5 is in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3. So the square root of 5 is in between 2 and 3. So the perfect square numbers that you need to memorize is square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 25 is 5, square root of 36 is 6, square root of 49 is 7, square root of 64 is 8, square root of 81 is 9, square root of 100 is 10. So at least memorize those ones, so you know what numbers to pick, right? Okay, and then question C. Square root of 8. The square root of 8 is in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. So the square root of 8 is in between 2 and 3. D. Square root of 10. The square root of 10 is in between the square root of 9 and the square root of 16. So the square root of 10 must be in between 3 and 4. And then E. Square root of 20. Square root of 20 is in between the square root of 16 and the square root of 25. So square root of 20 is in between 4 and 5. F. Square root of 30. The square root of 30 is in between the square root of 25 and the square root of 36. So the square root of 30 is in between 5 and 6. G. The square root of 40. Square root of 40 is in between the square root of 36 and the square root of 49. So the square root of 40 is in between 6 and 7. H. Square root of 60. The square root of 60 is in between the square root of 49 and the square root of 64. So the square root of 60 is in between 7 and 8. I. Square root of 90. Square root of 90 is in between the square root of 81 and the square root of 100. So we can say that the square root of 90 is in between 9 and 10. And J. The square root of 150. So this one is a little bit more difficult. The square root of 144 is 12, and the square root of 169 is 13. So square root of 150 is in between 12 and 13. Okay. Square root of 200. Same idea, these are slightly bigger. So square root of 196 and square root of 225. Square root of 196 is 14, and the square root of 225 is 15. Oh, square root of 300. Square root of 300 is in between square root of 289 and the square root of 324. The square root of 289 is 17, and square root of 384 is 18. Okay, that's it for question 1. So for the last few, if the numbers are too big for you, feel free to use a calculator. I'll see you in question 2.